Hello everyone. Well, I would like to first thank the organizers for this event and this congress. It's a wonderful opportunity for me to be here. It's an honor to be here presenting my thoughts on Gollum. This was actually my master's dissertation a year ago, and it's the starting point of my PhD research. So your feedback will be really, really welcome, and that's it, let's go. So, the main purpose of this presentation is to analyze the figure of Gollum and his importance in the history of the Middle-earth, paying special attention to the dual personality of the character, caused mainly by the possession of the One Ring. As you can see in the skeleton of this presentation, not only Smeagol but also the Baggins will be taken into account in order to study the first of the two perspectives I will analyze, that is Gollum as a hidden self. The second one studies Gollum as a complete character that tries to find his place in the narration. I would also like to point out that even though I know the story of the ring dates back to the events related in the Silmarillion, and since I will focus my attention in Gollum, I will only refer to the story narrated in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and specifically to those scenes that have to do directly with this character. With his obsession for the ring, and with his transformation. So, first things first, who is Gollum? I'm sure you all know who he is. First time the reader meets him, it's in Riddles in the Dark, in The Hobbit. But it is not until The Shadow of the Past, from the Fellowship of the Ring, that we know the story of this character. Gandalf tells this to Frodo. So we know that Gollum was a hobbit named Smeagol. He obtained the ring through Mordor, and he became obsessed with it. Or, as I'd rather say, he became possessed by the ring, and it's an important difference. He underwent a number of physical and psychological transformations that are usually seen as a process of dehumanization. However, when I come to this point, there's a question in my mind saying, really, dehumanization? Is he a human being, or is he a hobbit? So maybe we should use another term. Actually, reading Jane Tan's Mythology of Power, she shyly proposes the term hobbitization to make reference to another step in this process. And I really think this would be more appropriated. But then another question comes out, and is he really dehumanized or dehobbitized? Well, it depends on our point of view. Are we insiders or are we outsiders? If we are inside the Middle-earth, that would be awesome, we would dehobbitize him. He's always referred to as an animal, as a creature, as something really, really different from a hobbit. He doesn't even have a hobbit name. But if we place ourselves outside, as we sadly are, we have to humanize him, because in order to understand him, we need to give him human characteristics. R. J. Rayleigh in Tolkien and the Fairy Story, talked about different gradations of human level. So Gollum would be somehow a human being of a lower level than we are as readers. But I am going to take this big opportunity and place myself inside the Middle-earth, so I'm going to talk about dehobbitization, rehabilitation, etc. when I analyze Gollum. So, let's go to the main point, Gollum versus Gollum. Gollum as a hidden self. This process of dehobbitization starts when Smeagol, the hobbit, is exposed to the ring. These lines, that we all know, explain the main purpose of this powerful object, that is, control, find, and sunk into the darkness every creature that lives in Arda. It was created by Sauron, and when he made it, he invested in it some of his power. So, even when he was defeated, he could have a wraith-like existence. Therefore, the One Ring has become an active being. It has an active existence, as Gandalf explains here to Frodo. So, for example, he says a ring of power looks after itself. Its keeper never abandons it. At most, he plays with the idea of handing it onto someone else's care. It abandons Gollum later on. So, the ring is not only able to confer invisibility to its bearer, but it is also able to possess him, as it did with Smeagol, but also with Bilbo and Frodo, and therefore it awoken a hidden self in all of them. So, the best known characteristic of Smeagol is his dual personality. The reader becomes aware of this in The Hobbit, for he uses the pronoun we to refer to himself, and he also uses the expression my precious, that is never clear if it refers to the ring or to himself, that hidden dark side. As you have in the first quote, how did we lose it, my precious? Who is he talking to? And in the second quote, you have an example of how this duality is portrayed in the books as a thought of the narrator instead of a differentiated dialogue. The narrator says, then suddenly his voice and language changed, and he sobbed his throat and spoke, but not to them. So we never get to see two different, in a dialogue, the two voices. But Peter Jackson, in The Lord of the Rings and in The Hobbit, portrayed this character, and I think personally he did a really good job. We have the Gollum side, the Smeagol side. So we can always see, actually, the two different personalities. After this process of dehobbitization that we saw, Gollum goes through a rehobbitization process that starts when the ring leaves him. However, it is not until he finds Frodo and Sam that this process is more obvious. Since Frodo is the new ring bearer, and he shows pity for Smeagol, this character starts to feel somehow identified with Frodo. In the Two Towers, it is said that they could reach one another's mind. So this identification is really strong. In the eyes of Frodo, he began to be a victim rather than a creature, and also his behavior changes. He even hunts rabbits for the hobbits and saves Frodo twice. And in this quote here, you can see a really good representation of this change. I think it's a really powerful quote. So Frodo and Sam are sleeping, and Gollum touched Frodo's knee, but almost the touch was a caress. For a fleeting moment, could one of the sleepers have seen him, they would have thought that they beheld an old weary hobbit, shrunken by the years that had carried him far beyond his time, beyond friends and kin, and the fields and streams of youth, an old, starved, pitiable thing. So we see this hobbitness in him again. But, sadly, Sam wakes up and he misunderstands this. So he misunderstands Smeagol's intention, and his reaction is a little bit violent. And that makes this rehabilitation process come to an end. As he tells Gollum, I will say, but where have you been to? Sneaking out and sneaky back, you old villain. And there the narrator explains how a green glint flickered under his heavy lids. Almost a spider-like he looked now, crouched back on his bent limbs, with his protruding eyes. The fleeting moment had passed beyond recall. So Gollum is here again, Gollum is back, that dark side is awake again, and he decides to take the hobbits to Shelob Cave. But let's move on to the Baggins. What happens with these two hobbits? Well, there are some similarities between the ways in which both Bilbo and Frodo react to the ring. Both of them slowly lose their identities, being described as Gollum-like creatures, as we have the little wrinkled creature in Gollum terms, let's say, and they even use Gollum expressions, like they refer to the ring as my precious, and they say that, both of them say that the ring is theirs. So they even react with violence when others take the One Ring. For instance, remember Bilbo in Rivendell, when he sees Frodo wearing the ring, he wants to take it back, and well, in the film we have even a physical change. It lasts only for a few seconds, but it's really obvious that he has become a very Gollum-like creature. There's something going on there. And the same happens to Frodo nearly at the end, when Sam carries the ring and tries to help him with that burden. And Frodo even thinks that he is an orc that wants to take the ring and reacts again with violence. However, and also, none of them is able to recover from that burden. They are both ill in a sense that Gollum's side is awakened, and it's always going to be there. And they actually are never able to go back to the Shire. They take that ship with the elves. However, there are two main differences between both of them. The first one is that Frodo is aware from the very beginning of what the ring is, the story behind it, and the dangers it has. And he has a model. He has Gollum. He sees in Gollum what he can become if he is finally possessed by the ring. And Bilbo, on the other hand, does not know. He is unaware of this. And also the other difference is that although Gandalf has a big part in this, Bilbo is able to leave the ring behind, and he gives it to Frodo. He just throws it to the floor. And Frodo is not able to fulfill his task. We need Gollum there. Thus, we see how the ring awakes an evil Gollum side in these two characters. Gollum can be seen, therefore, as the other, as J.R.R. explains in Frodo and Aragorn, the concept of the hero. Gollum as the other, Gollum as is his dark side. Gollum is the dark side of both the three hobbits, Smeagol, Bilbo, and Frodo. And this opens a new possibility, might be a future research. Can the ring be seen as a materialization of this Gollum dark side? I don't know. The other perspective I would like to talk about is that of Gollum as a complete character. So it's time that a character is exposed to the ring. He has some dreams about how it would be to own it. And of course, Gollum is not an exception. In Two Towers, he starts wondering about it, imagining how it would be to eat fish every day, and he even called himself Lord Smeagol, Gollum the Great, the Gollum. This last name, the Gollum, resembles the title of the first novel in which we meet him, that is, The Hobbit. So in a sense, he's placing himself in the center of the story, and he's not totally wrong. His role in Frodo's journey is so important that in fact he is the one that, by falling accidentally, he throws the ring into the lava. Frodo is not able to do this. So Gollum finally destroys the ring. Actually, this, there is a premonitory comment by Gandalf and also by Frodo, advancing something that is going to happen. Gandalf says that Gollum has some part to play yet, for good or for ill, before the end. And Frodo tells Gollum, actually, if I wearing it were to command you, you would obey, even if it were to leap from a precipice or to cast yourself into the fire. Of course, we don't know if Gollum was thinking about obeying Frodo at that moment. I doubt it. But he actually does this same thing. He falls from a precipice into the fire that is the lava. And he had a really important role to play. And moreover, when he hides himself from the hobbits, because he wants to hide the ring, he is hiding it from Sauron himself. So he is keeping the Middle-earth safe for some years. And so what I try to explain with all this is that critical studies of these novels, of these works, tend to focus on the most obvious heroes of the story, that are Aragorn, Frodo, even Sam or Bilbo. However, not many critics see Gollum, Smeagol, this dual character, from a positive perspective, although his role is far more important than that of a pitiable character. Of course, there is darkness in him, but there is also gratitude and affection towards Frodo, as we have seen in that caress. Even when he guides them to Shelob's cave, he is showing them the correct way to Mordor. So, to sum up, finally, it is important to bear in mind when we analyze any character from Tolkien's work that none of them is good or bad, but good and bad. At the end of the Ring story, in which Smeagol compensates his rival's mercy by saving the Middle-earth, should be enough to prove it. Therefore, we must pay attention to the different possible perspectives existing when we study a character and how they evolve throughout the narration, moving from one side of the coin to the other, as the three hobbits do. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adriana. That was definitely a very exhaustive analysis of both Smeagol and Gollum. Any questions? Last row, Joel.
Is there perhaps something about the way in which Gollum is changed from Smeagol to Gollum down to the ring? Is perhaps the influence of the way in which Sauron converts things, as the orcs or yourselves, although that would have one. In that Gollum's character attributes are, as you say, almost completely opposite to what hobbits were. Where hobbits like fine food and nice clothing, Gollum hardly wears any clothing and likes, slimy things. Is that kind of, the effect of the ring is the effect of Sauron's mind, converting things to the opposite of what they once were?
Yes, of course. I mean, as I said, by making the ring, when he is making the ring, he deposits some of his power. So there is a Sauron aura, let's say, in the ring. So of course, Sauron's activity, his evilness, is in the ring, and thus it influences the bearer.
Come on in the middle.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking, very nice, by the way. I really
Thank you.
enjoyed your presentation.
Thanks.
I was just thinking, could you perhaps say, because Gollum, who has, like you said, a very quite a key role in the story, and actually is the one who leads to the ring being thrown into the lava, could you say, perhaps, it was just an idea that came up throughout your presentation, that perhaps it was not so much Gollum himself that was the key to the ring being thrown into the fire, but maybe it was actually the entire point of the Lord of the Rings was that it was the mercy that people showed him along the way that led to the ring actually being destroyed, because they show pity for Gollum throughout both Aragorn and other people.
Yes, of course. That pityness they show is fundamental for him to be alive, and for him to actually take the ring back and and fall into the lava. Yes, that's a really good point. Tolkien was, I think, a big fan of goodwill and of how we should behave with the rest in a good way. So yes, this is. I agree with you. We could really say that, I think.
Gentleman in the white t-shirt.
In obviously the first edition of The Hobbit, Gollum's quite a different character, and in that version, he obviously doesn't really care too much about Gollum because he's carried away. But he does refer to himself still as my precious, and I'm always wondering whether Tolkien actually really said that meant that he's talking about himself whenever he says my precious. I never actually got around to changing it.
Well, I don't know. Actually, I cannot really answer that because. I think that the change, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the changes made in The Hobbit are actually because of the story of the ring, right? He wants to focus on that, so he made some changes. He doesn't change that, that's true. But maybe that was a way of showing that he was already possessed by the ring.
I think it does show though that to begin with, I think that my precious actually meant Gollum, not the ring.
Okay.
Whether it was changed.
Yeah, I mean, that's what
Yes.
I tend to think that. I mean, I really think that is more likely to be referred to that other side instead of the object, right?
Yeah.
But I think we cannot be 100% sure.
You never can.
That's it.
Any more questions, Centrals?
Tolkien commented extensively on the relation both between Frodo and Gollum, Gollum and the ring, Frodo and the ring, in some of his letters. Just a question whether you're familiar with this and how you see your analysis in relation to that.
Can you please? I don't.
Yeah,
I'm not
well,
sure.
you have several of the published letters where Tolkien discusses the relation of Frodo and the ring, relation between Frodo and Gollum, and the relation of Gollum with the ring. And I'm trying not to start lecturing on what Tolkien wrote in the letters.
Yes.
So if you are not familiar with that, that's perfectly okay.
I
I
am.
just wondered how you see your analysis in relation to those discussions.
Well, I have to say I would really like to have a discussion with Tolkien about this. This is, I think we would have a bit of an argument about it, but he's the author, so he might be right. But, well, I try to do my best and just give my thoughts and comments on this. I really think that the ring is just a way of showing our evil side, well, the characters' evil side. And so Frodo's and Gollum relationship to the ring, for me, it's very, very similar. The difference is Frodo has a model, he knows how he can end up, and he has the ring for fewer years. It's a shorter time, considerable shorter time. So I don't know if that helps you, but
Yeah.
that's it. Thank you.
Did you have a question?
Yes, so I'm interested in the concept of Gollum as hero. One of the things that the previous talk made me think of in regard to this is, so Gollum isn't just the hero in tossing the ring at the end. He is the entire reason that Frodo gets to Mordor at all. And so it seems to me that as Strider ceases to be a ranger and becomes the king, that role is left to Gollum. He is the one who gets them to go through the wilderness, and even Aragorn praises his watercraft. So I wondered what you thought of going in that direction.
Yes. Sorry. Yes, there is certainly something going on there, but can we really talk him as a hero? I think I would like to say that freely, but I know you have to make a further research. I think there has been a PhD, a very recent one, published in Spain about it. Not as a hero, but as an anti-hero. And I really think there is a possibility there of Gollum being a hero. He is the one that guides Frodo. Maybe he's not a great leader, but he guides them into Mordor. Sorry?
It's what's in his head that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Why does he do it? Just because he wants to get the ring back?
That's it. What is his motivation? Is it only the ring? Is it only that he wants the ring back, or is that hobbitness there? Is that gratitude and affection for Frodo paying some? You know?
I really want to hear a retelling of the Lord of the Rings from Gollum's point of view.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah.
Sorry,
Maybe next year.
Ms. Calendar, we've sort of run out, but we're on a break now, and I'm sure you can continue your discussions in the bar or elsewhere, wherever it is not raining. But another round of applause.